Okay, now we're ready.
let me wait.
No.
I wanted to tell you this, first of all. It wasn't a square, it was a rectangle.
Rectangle.
A square is a rectangle.
What you're saying you want on video, Lucile?
Huh?
What you want this on video, right?
No, I was just going to tell about the building before we got started.
Oh, so this is before you get started.
The foundation.
I'm talking about the foundation before we get started.
Good.
Rectangle instead of a
But
square.
don't you want that on there?
I'm recording it.
Yeah, we used to play on it.
Yeah, we prayed on the foundation of it. There was one large room upstairs that housed 53 children, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. Second room downstairs to the right, 47 children, 1st and 2nd grade. And the other room to the left was 33 children, 6th and 7th grade. No cloakroom. They hung in clothes in the hall on the wall. Reading and writing was taught to the tune of a hickory sticks and some rulers. Recess bell rang at 10 o'clock and 2. Lunchtime on a coal bin, or if you could go home, you went home. Special education classes, art class, music, sewing, manual training was brought in from the other school. We had no special education. All children were special. Diapers didn't exist. Your mom and teachers settled a rip. Separation and segregation was the accepted rule from the makeshift school. Each was given a bag of tools to adhere to the rules. That was the building.
Okay. That was Richardson Avenue School.
No, that wasn't what was taken on the inside.
Okay.
My name is Sarah Lucile Stewart Mitchell. My birthday is January 3rd. Reflections of the Richardson Avenue School. After summer vacation, school was where I went in September. After Labor Day, the days of summer was well spent. Instead of walking down Main Street to Swedesboro Grammar School and walking down the steps to the classroom in the basement, I found myself walking up the stairs to an upper room in a new building with brand new oak floors smelling of linseed oil, a schoolroom now for 53 children. Below this upper room, 2 rooms were on the lower level, one on the right for the 1st and 2nd grades, and 1 teacher. The room on the left housed the 6th and 7th grade, 1 teacher. 2 rooms for the process of biological elimination, 1 for the boys and 1 for the girls. The teacher's room was at the top of the stairs, at the rear of this room on my left. A small cloakroom in the rear where the children hung their coats and their lunch boxes. They ate on the top of the coal stoves, which you could bake a potato on. Luckily, no one was ever burned. 1 janitor attended to 4 coal stoves in the facility. The janitor spent his time in the hallways between the 2 rooms on the lower level when he wasn't constantly stoking the fires in the winter. The spring put him outdoors. 8:45, the teachers took charge of their classes, opening the session for the day by standing and repeating the Pledge of Allegiance, saluting the flag. This was done after having read a passage from the Bible. Then came the singing of America, my country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims' pride. From every mountainside let freedom ring. Banished to this school was this freedom. We were separate, but not equal. The teacher taught all subjects to the 3 classes. Reading, writing, and arithmetic was taught to the tune of a hickory stick, a bunch of 12-inch rulers banded together. Sometimes a pointer or a yardstick was used to command attention from disinterested or disruptive children. This was only your parents. They backed the teacher up. Other subjects were taught: history, geography, science, and spelling. Extracurriculum teachers came once a week to teach physical ed, art, and music, manual training, woodshop, and home song was taught in the Swedesboro Grammar School. On Fridays, I walked from Richardson Avenue School to the Swedesboro Grammar on Kings Highway, which is now St. Joseph Catholic School. Back to the Richardson Avenue School, the teachers, Miss Freeman, taught us various musical selections because she played the piano. One outstanding selection, James Weldon Johnson's Lift Every Voice. She also made us aware of the various black notables. Some of these pictures are still on the walls, placed there by Mrs. Elaine Edwin and yours truly. Back to the classroom. Recess was 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. You released your pent-up energy on the grounds adjacent to the school. On my left, which did not belong to the school property, it was owned by Walter Stanton's Trucking Company, which later became R.A. Burns Trucking Company, which now is Mr. Cucinatus. 12 o'clock noon was lunchtime. If you were in walking distance of the school, you went home for lunch. I ran across the street for lunch. My home was 522nd Street. Those who brought their lunch ate outside atop the coal bin unless the weather was inclement. Then they ate inside at their desks. No lunchroom or all-purpose room. Every room was all-purpose. Having had our lunch, we played until time to return to class. 3:30 school was dismissed. After school, the building was used for community events. A separate PTA, Boy Scouts, Campfire Girls, and various other programs were given. The society ladies of the town promoted plays, concerts, musicals, and fashion shows. On that podium is where I did my first walk-on as a model for the PJ gang. The NAACP of Gloucester and Salem County was organized by officers of New York City headquarters, Roy Wilkins, Thurgood Marshall, and others. Horace Anderson was the first president of the Gloucester-Salem County NAACP. This building was used by the Masons, Eastern Stars, the Moses, the Jacobwell Lodges, and for political organization meeting during the evenings. Back to school, the teachers stayed late after school if you needed help. And they also visited your homes, discussing your progression with your parents. And parents visited classrooms unannounced. After 3 years in the Richardson Avenue School, where I learned much, not only the academic subjects, but the other asides for living in the two worlds, I was promoted to the 8th grade in the Swedesboro Grammar School for 1 year, and then on to Swedesboro High School. I was the only colored child at that time in the school of 300. Segregation was the accepted rule, but it did not prohibit our learning by being in a makeshift school. The teachers worked hard to prepare us how to exist and cope in a cruel world. We are still marching to the beat of the drum as the flag of separation and segregation unfurls and recurls.
That's all. That's the whole story. That's the Garden of Bundy. Yeah. Want to tell Michael?
Start from where you were born. Where do you
I
live?
was born in Virginia.
Okay.
And I was raised here in Swedesboro by my uncle and aunt. And I started at the age of 6 in the first grade. My teacher's name was Miss Dully at the Swedesboro Grammar School. Then I went from the 6th grade to the 8th grade in the Swedesboro Grammar. Miss Freeman was my second teacher, and we were in the basement of the grammar school down by the gym, and the lunchroom was right across from where we were. Then,
Toilets.
yeah, and the bathrooms, yeah. And when we got into the 7th grade, I think we were moved upstairs and I was under the direction of Miss Hughes and Miss Ballinger. Then when we finished up till the 8th grade, we graduated from the 8th grade at the Swedesboro High, and that's when I started. Now, I missed out on, see, I'm not doing it because I would have had it prepared had I known that we had to do this. But
That's okay, I just want to know.
Yeah, you can go over it, but anyhow, we went as far as the 7th grade, I think. No, 5th grade, that's where it was. Yeah.
I'll ask you about the grammar school. So, you were saying you were in the basement of the grammar school.
Correct.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that. What was...
Well, Miss Freeman was my teacher there. So when the school got overcrowded, we had the 2 colored rooms there and the 2 colored teachers. We were moved from that school over to the Richardson Avenue School. Now, if I make no mistake, the school here, the Margaret C. Clifford School, was built for the kids coming from the grammar school.
Right.
But I really can't remember what happened the reason we were in the Masonic Temple.
Right.
No.
Because it got segregated, and then there were too many children in the one school that they needed another school for it.
Yes. And in the Richardson Avenue School, like we say, it was so many in the, Miss Perry was my teacher there when I was in the 5th grade there.
How many grades were taught altogether?
About 7, in that school. But I can't recall whether we went from there, because when we finished the Richardson Avenue, I don't know whether we went back.
You went back to the
grammar
school for 1 year,
for
8th grade.
The 8th grade, yes. And then we had the graduation, and we went to the Swedesboro High School.
And where was the Swedesboro High School located?
Up on Kings Highway. It was Main Street at.
Okay.
Maybe that's where your son is. That school up there?
Walter Hill School.
Oh, the Hill School, okay.
Yeah,
That was our high school.
That was the high school at that time. But I can recall things that happened at the Swedesboro Grammar School, because the colored children, were not allowed to play with any of the equipment until on Fridays. And that's the only day that they allowed us to have the swings or the big basketballs or whatever.
Seesaws.
Yeah. So all of that I can recall. Yes.
And then, do you remember any instance that nobody ever tried to do it differently or went up to play any other time?
Well, yes, the other kids, you mean tried with the play?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, they really did. They would try to get on the swings and the seesaws or what have you, but we would see that they didn't play on that Friday because that was our day.
Okay.
And at that particular time, the children really didn't pay any attention to that, but it was their day, and they seemed that they got their day, which was on a Friday. And I never stayed there for lunch, because I would go either walk home and for my lunch. Sometimes I even went across the street to my cousin, which was Lucile's mother, instead of walking back to Mechanic Street. We didn't have bus service then. So I walked from Mechanic Street down to the Swedesboro Grammar School every day.
It was a young age.
I mean, bits and pieces will come to me, but like
Right.
now, I'm really not.
Then just tell me a little bit about high school, about what you remember.
Well, I had no problem in high school.
Okay.
No.
How about graduation? What was graduation like?
Well, it was good. Everything was fine. I mean, so far as being, you mean from 8th grade or the high school?
The high school.
From the high school, I had no problem with that. It was at least, I played basketball, and I also played hockey.
Okay.
Yes, when I was in there. And, were taken to a trip to Washington, D.C. But I do recall it was a place that they stopped. Now, I can't remember the place that we stopped on our way now. Maybe some of the other students that's here now would remember where we stopped. And at that particular time, we knew we were segregated, but yet still we didn't know the difference because, like, when they stopped for the restroom, we all went up the stairs to the restroom, everybody. The colored and the white went up together. And they didn't, the kids that was in our class, they really didn't show a lot of difference. And right through, when they graduated and everything, and down through the years, they never showed any difference with us. But when we went upstairs, we went up there and everybody was looking at us because they were in the parts of the South. And one particular girl, she had ordered a hamburger. I never will forget it. And she ordered her hamburger first, like among one of the first. And we noticed that they waited on every white child, and they made her last to get the hamburger. And then she said, well, now you can keep it. And she didn't pay for it. And we got back on the bus. So we were segregated in Washington, D.C., which is the capital of the United States, there, because we were not allowed to stay together. We stayed in a hotel called the White Law Hotel. Yeah, White Law Hotel. And the bus would have, when we went on our trips and everything during the day, the bus would have to come over and they picked us up and we would go on the sightseeing trips. And I remember we went to, I can't remember the name, that, you know, when people are buried in the...
Arlington Cemetery?
Oh, yeah. No, not the Arlington. No, you know, the catacombs, I think, where you push...
Down in the chapel?
Chapel, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, and when
big church down there.
Yeah, and you know, that was one of the first places that we went. And some white kids were there, and they would say, and when we went in, they says, oh, colored people. They were so shocked to see colored people in there. And, you know, kids at that age, we're smart too with it. So we just let them know just what was what. Yeah. But that was...
I don't think we were really supposed to go in there.
No, but we were in there because Mrs. not Ballinger, Sager, she was our class advisor, and Mr. Hollingsworth, they were our class advisors, and they were very nice teachers to us.
Was that the National
Cathedral?
Yeah, that's where it was. But you know the mind. If you were as old as I am, you wouldn't remember. Yeah, but you know, everything else went well, I thought. But when we came back, I remember when we returned back and we stopped at the same place that was a stopping place for the bus at that time, and they said that the bus, if we wanted to, we could go to the outside window if we wanted anything to eat and get our sandwich or whatever we choose to have. But we all refused to get off the bus and go. If they couldn't feed us from the inside, then we did not get on. And, we were all seniors at that particular time. We refused to go on. Mm-hmm. But so far as the class and our class advisors, we got along fine in the school, in the high school. I can't recall. There was a lot of things that went on that you can't recall.
We never, didn't make a stop because we rode on the president's bus and we had a bathroom on there.
I don't know the bus company or nothing, but I know that
public service.
Yeah, we went on those buses, whatever they were, and I know we weren't allowed to. We were not allowed to go into the restaurant. I do remember that.
Right.
My name is Lillian Clark Moore. My experience began at the Richardson Avenue School in 1934. Before that, to another school called the Battentown School, which is in the southern part of Swedesboro. And it was not a segregated school. It was an integrated school. Integrated because farm children went to that school. And there were 4 grades in that school, taught by Miss Margaret Clifford. And this school here on Auburn Avenue is named after Miss Margaret Clifford. She was my first teacher. And she was a wonderful teacher. And we learned so much from her. And then, after 4 years being in the Battentown School, we had to come downtown to the Richardson Avenue School, which was a segregated school. And I was in 5th grade. That's when my experience began there. My teacher was Miss Helen Freeman. For the Battentown School, which is in the southern part of Swedesboro. And it was not a segregated school. It was an integrated school. Integrated because farm children went to that school. And there were 4 grades in that school, taught by Miss Margaret Clifford. And this school here on Auburn Avenue is named after Miss Margaret Clifford. She was my first teacher. And she was a wonderful teacher. And we learned so much from her. And then, after 4 years being in the Battentown School, we had to come downtown to the Richardson Avenue School, which was a segregated school. And I was in 5th grade. That's when my experience began there. My teacher was Miss Helen Freeman. And there were 3 grades in her room. We were upstairs, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and half of the 5th grade. The other half of the 5th grade was downstairs in another room. It was 5th, 6th, and 7th grade downstairs. Miss Freeman was a very good teacher. She taught so many things. I just loved the morning time. As Lucile had said before, we had opening exercises and we sang so many nice songs together. And then after that, she had to sort of juggle her time between the 3 grades that she had. 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. And I think she started with the 3rd grade. I think she always taught them reading first. Reading, 4th grade reading, and then 5th grade reading. While they were doing their reading classes, the other 2 grades, the 4th and 5th grade, had to do their math assignments or whatever she gave them to do. And we had it done. By the time she got around to us, we had that work done. And we were ready. And we knew we had to have the work done. She was a very strict, a very stern teacher. But we didn't mind at all because we respected her a lot. We respected her, and our parents respected her. And they did everything they could to help Miss Freeman. I don't know if the salaries were that great at that time, in Swedesboro, not the teachers got much money or not, but my parents thought they should bring food to the teacher. Because we did live on a farm, we had a lot of produce, and then in the wintertime we had 6 pigs that we killed, and we would bring Miss Freeman meat, We came in on a bus. Mr. Dauber was the bus driver. Mr. Dauber would help me with the fruit and the vegetables and all that, to take to Miss Freeman. Miss Freeman, we had to give Miss Freeman food to take. She lived in Philadelphia most of the time. And I think she stayed down here during the week. Am I right? Okay. But anyway, they did things like that. But in the springtime, we had asparagus. And we'd bring Miss Freeman asparagus. It was a little kitchen off the main classroom. It was a little kitchen. We would go in there and cook for Miss Freeman, cook her asparagus for her. And she just loved it.
Sweet potatoes on top of the stove.
Sweet potatoes, we brought her watermelon, cantaloupe, and she was so grateful for it. And I think she shared sometimes with the teacher downstairs, Miss Gully, because Miss Gully had first, I think, second grade, beginners first and second. And I think she shared some of the food with Miss Gully because they would ride the bus back and forth. In 6th grade, I went downstairs to a classroom downstairs, and Mrs. Alberta Hardy, Miss Alberta Hardy was the teacher there. And I had her from September, I think, until December. She decided she was going to get married. She married this Mr. Perry. But if you got married in Swedesboro, you couldn't teach. You had to be single to be a teacher. Couldn't be married. So she had to stop, but she did get a job in Woodbury teaching. Then this Mr. Ralston Gator took her place. And oh, do we love Mr. Ralston Gator. He was a male teacher. And oh, he was so good. He just taught us so many things. I loved his social studies class. He just took us all over the world. We thought we were in Germany. We thought we were in Italy, Egypt. He was such a good teacher. And we just loved that. I remember in 7th grade walking down to the grammar school for sewing classes for the last period Friday afternoon. And I hated walking down to that grammar school on Friday. I just didn't want to do that. I did not want to do it.
Why?
To leave our building and have to walk down there. The last period, even as a child, I knew the last period wasn't, that wasn't the right thing to do, to make us come down to the last period Friday afternoon. But anyway, it happened. Then after 7th grade, we went to the grammar school. My teacher was my homeroom teacher was Mrs. Ballinger. I forget Miss Ballinger's first name. Hannah Ballinger. And her desks were all screwed to the floor. And there were 3 black kids in my class. And of course, we had the last 3 seats in the back of the room. We couldn't sit in the front of them. We had to sit in the back of the room. Me first, and John Verlander and James Payne were the other 2 boys. But she was nice to us, though. If you had any kind of brain and you were smart, it didn't matter with her what color you were. And then on to Swedesboro High School, which I got along very well with Swedesboro High School. Got off to a good start because I had a good Latin teacher. What was her name? Miss Shin.
Elizabeth Shin.
I had Latin for 4 years with Miss Shin. I just ate that up. And we had another good teacher. I guess they were all pretty good. We thought they were pretty good anyway. Good math teacher, Miss Stump, and Miss, who was the English teacher over here?
Costello.
Miss Costello, yeah. We went on a class trip to Washington, and we had to stay at a hotel called the Whitelaw Hotel. And our white kids stayed at the New Colonial Hotel. And the bus would pick us up every morning to take us on the various trips that we had, And it was okay, kind of okay. Then my mother had always told me, you're going to go to college. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. You have to go to school. So she had thought about sending me over to Cheney. And then we thought about going to Glassboro. It was called Glassboro State Teachers College at the time. So I guess for financial reasons, my dad thought maybe I should go to Glassboro State Teachers College. And at the time, to get into college, you had to take a test at the college. And so I told, I don't want to call my principal's name. Everybody knew who it was, though. But anyway, I wanted to get the day off to go take the test. He didn't want to let me have that day off. My mother had said, you're going to take that test and you're going, I'm going to excuse you. And you're going to take that test. And there were several of us who went. And guess who passed the test? I was the only one who passed the test. I was the only girl in my class to pursue a higher education. And so I went to Glassboro College and I became a teacher. But at the time when I went, I don't know whether you want to hear all this or not. When that time that I went, black students were not allowed on campus. They were not allowed to stay on campus. We had to stay in a boarding house. So it was was about 2.5 miles away. So we walked from the boarding house to Glassboro State Teachers College every day. We did that for 3 years. And then in my senior year, they allowed blacks to stay on campus. They called themselves integrated. But we stayed in the Oak 4. All the blacks stayed in Oak 4. You call that integration? But the college experience was very good. And you wouldn't even know. I mean, the white students were just as, we were just one of them, you know.
And what year was that?
1942 to 1946.
Mm-hmm.
And then, ironically, a little later, Dr. Herman James became the president of Swedesboro College. I think they called it, I don't know if he's rolling when he was there or not. No, I don't think it was. Swedesboro College, I think. I don't know what else I can tell you about my experience, but I've had a good school experience regardless of the segregation. It was a very good experience.
Nice warm
We
days.
would come up in the cold bin and eat our lunch every day.
Yeah, but you didn't know cold was in it, did you?
And then
Because the way it was made.
and then sometimes if we were lucky, Mom and Dad would give us 10 cents.
Mm-hmm.
We'd
That's a
go
lot of
down
money.
to the delicatessen
Yeah,
and
you
get
go
5
anywhere.
cents worth of bologna and 5
Bologna,
cents worth of crack.
Yeah, I remember how to make peace with
What was that store
I
down
can't
there
remember.
called? That man
Dukes,
next to
Dukes,
Slim Snyder's. No, it was right next to Slim Snyder's on the other side.
Well, that was the
Was it meat
A&P
store?
down there.
It was a meat store.
Mampies?
That's it.
Mampies.
Mampies.
Mampies or Millers.
We get 5 cents worth of bologna
What?
That's
and a
what
box of crackers for 10 cents, and that would be our lunch.
I never buy. I never.
Well, Mom used to send us down there with 25 cents to get meat for 6 of us.
What?
At that same, you better believe it, get a good big steak like that.
You remember Mampies?
Yeah, that was Mr. Mampy. Mr. Mampy had been there once before, they told me. Then after that, Miller took over. Then Mampy came back. I don't know what Miller died or whatever it was.
And next to him was
Came back again.
Slim Snyder was next to him.
Right.
We could go in there and buy ice cream, but we couldn't eat it in
Right,
there.
right.
No.
Yes.
But he wasn't always there.
You had to bring it out.
Who was there before him? Yeah, because Slim Snyder was down on Allen
He
Street.
was on
right?
Allen Street. Slim
Yeah.
Snyder was
He
on
was
Allen
next to Mampy
Who
when
was
I used
that
to go
first?
there.
Damas.
Damage?
He
Okay.
was the one who gave my dad all those chairs, ice cream chairs.
Okay, okay. Get a chance around there? That's not the one. No, they're not that one. No,
You know, those little
no.
chairs like this with the wire backs.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. You know, the school experience was great, I thought. Even in the segregated thing, like I told Mickey one day, Mickey Holman, who was a principal over at Delsey. Well, I grew up with him anyhow. My father and his father were real tight buddies because they worked for H.K. Shoemaker together. And then Butch Holman had his own agency after that. But anyhow, I said, we were young and we didn't think too much about segregation. We never thought anything about it anyway. Or we just was living.
With the flow.
With the flow, right. Young, innocent, you didn't care nothing about what was going on as long as you got something to eat and you could play and have friends.
But you know how sad, the sad thing is, when I was in the 7th grade, there must have been about 20 of us black children. And only 3 of us made it to graduation. 3.
Well, there's only 3, let me see.
Because at that time, I think a lot of the children quit school after 7th grade and they went to work.
Well, look how many started with me and the only started with Ida and I.
Well,
This is a picture of me and my this is my
three in our class.
English teacher standing in front of me.
Really in my class, we graduated.
And then
We
the other.
had John, Amanda, and me.
Oh, what about me? I
This is Miss Costello you're talking about, and that's yours truly
I
right
don't
there.
know how many.
And this girl right here, out of our class, about 10 or 15, 20, her and I were the only ones finished high school in
And then she
that
quit.
class.
I was so mad at Pearl, so hurt when she quit.
We had people come from Sydney and some of the others, you know.
But I don't know exactly how many blacks were in our class. But I know
We had about 8.
We had 8 when we graduated, and 8 graduated with us.
From high school?
From high
Is
school.
that right?
But they
The
all
largest
top of the
black
street,
class.
don't they?
No,
Yeah,
but
just about, though.
just about because
Yeah.
now Isabel really should have graduated before we did.
2 Pollards,
Yeah, 2 pilots, Thelma Maiden,
Fillmore.
Elizabeth Moore.
Yeah, big
Everybody
class
came to
myself.
Swedesboro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Russell Berry.
you think we started with an art school class? Maybe 12 people or something like that? Down at grammar school. But anyway, I started just like they did down at the old grammar school. I went down there, first and second grade, I had Miss Gully. Miss Gully was on the main floor in the northwest corner of the building, on the main floor. She was really good, and she, like Sister said, she would have these rulers together for them bad boys, and she'd come out, pop you on your leg if you, pop you. If you did that now, you'd probably have a lawsuit. But she didn't hurt you, but she just wanted to make you pay attention.
Miss Freeman would tap you too.
Yeah, right.
Because I was soft spoken, you know. And she said, "Speak up, speak
Uh-huh.
up." And if I didn't speak up,
I think that lady imparted more knowledge than golly. She knew everything, didn't she?
Who?
Miss Freeman.
She gave
Any
me a lot
category you wanted to be in, I wanted to know. She knew it.
my hero was
Black history,
My hero,
English,
Mr. Gator.
history,
Oh, yeah.
whatever it might be.
Mr.
Who was
Gator.
it?
Mr. Gator.
Oh yeah, well, I never went to school. That was a.
Mr.
I had him
Miss
as Boy
Clifford or
Scouts.
Mr. Gator.
I had him for Boy Scouts, but I had Miss.
That's because I had Miss Clifford
Miss
for
Hardy.
4 years.
I had
I
Miss Hardy.
like Miss Hardy.
Yeah, I had Miss Hardy.
She didn't stay long enough. She
Sixth
got-
and
she
seventh
didn't
grade.
stay long
She
enough.
was good, and that's when I used to get sent home from school for being smart alecky.
How the country has changed since then. Since
Oh, you did what, really?
1935. You couldn't be married and hold a job.
Yeah, I didn't know that until after I got out. I didn't. But I remember all the teachers, all the female teachers were single. They weren't married, you know, but I didn't know why. Another
She
instance.
got a job right away in Woodbury.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Swedesboro wouldn't keep her.
Okay.
But she was.
But you know, when we arrived at the high school up there, it was 4 beautiful years because these teachers, no matter what I didn't know, I could go to them after class. No matter whether it was Miss Sheen in Latin class or ancient history, they'd get me over this hump of ignorance. Miss Costello in English, same thing. Miss Stump in all the mathematics I took because I had all of them. You know, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and all that stuff. You have a spot in them things where you don't know what you're doing. And you go to the class, and they seem as though they would just welcome you to come in after school. They weren't ready to go home like I see these guys. I used to meet one of the fellas in later years. He'd be up buddies the same time I'd be full school.
The only one we had was Miss Brody.
But they were so willing to give you
Miss Brody was so
advice.
goofy.
She was so willing, I'm telling you. And if you were valedictorian or whatever you were, that's what you're going to be. They give you the marks that you needed and whatever it was. I never was valedictorian, salutatorian, or anything like that. Did an honor roll. No, honor roll
She was
student.
smart enough to be.
I wasn't smart, but I was, honor roll.
Yes, you were.
Well, Miss Perry was, she was a valedictorian
At
in
her
her
school,
class.
her class, yeah.
We tried to have that school named after her. You think they would? In Sweden, they would
What's in the Martin Cliff School?
entertain that idea.
It's
Oh,
just
the new
like,
school.
it's just like
Stratton
Lillian
School.
saying. Just like she
They
said.
went around and found some old governor that
Oh,
back in the 1700s or
Douglas Stratton,
1800s. We didn't even
Douglas
know
Stratton.
that.
Well, Miss Shin told my father that Edwin could have been valedictorian, but Betty Lawrence's father owned all this, the coal and
You
property.
know, Betty Lawrence, her mother was a school
Yeah,
teacher.
her brother was a school teacher.
I
So
think
that was the segregated part.
Well, Miss Estelo was before Thelma Maiden, and she could have been a valedictorian.
Yes.
And when I graduated
She's third person.
from Glassboro, I couldn't get a job in Swedesboro because you had to wait for a black teacher to resign.
Mm-hmm.
So you, and they weren't going anywhere.
And they were so glad to get those teachers from up here when they moved back down that school. They said they never knew they were that good.
Yeah.
They were,
They,
like I said, all those years we attended school, I thought we had in fact, this is what it was. We had the most accredited school in South Jersey, Swedesboro. They had people who could they had them good people that could impart all the knowledge you want. If you want to ingest it, they had it there. Boy, I don't care whether they were white or black, they all were good. Very good.
Well, I took my
salary was
exam
higher.
for Temple University, and listen, I stayed at Miss Gully's.
Did you?
I stayed at Miss Gully's and to go to take my exam. And Miss Gully was just like me in that room over there. Everywhere you look was books. all around her bed and everywhere. I said, well, I hope I don't have a place like that. She ought to see mine now with all the books and things that I have.
How bad?
Right. And I took it, and I got a high mark for an entrance exam for Temple University. And then I got sick. And they came down here to see where I was. But,
you know, sometimes I would tell me that walking I had to do to go to school every day. That walking was good. At the time I didn't know that exercise was really good every day. There was six of us.
We had to walk from down 2nd Street up to the high school every day. In the morning, back at noon to eat, back again, back at home.
But from the high school, I was right around the corner.
Yeah, I can see you down on the corner of that corner.
That's not like 2.5 miles.
Did you ever walk from
At Glassburg to go to college.
Oh, yeah, that was good for you.
I walked over to Mechanics.
L. Stewart.
Say it again, please.
Edwin.
Okay.
L. Stewart. Birthday, July the 31st, 1923.
The L stands for love.
All the girls used to like me in school. Fight together. Come on, Edwin, come on. But anyway, I started school in 1928 at the Swedesboro Grammar School. First grade, first and second grade. And my 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, 7th grade was down here at this Richardson Avenue school. And from there, back to the grammar school for 8th grade, and up to the high school for the remaining 4 grades. And I enjoyed every bit of it. I didn't like to get up in the morning, but I'll tell you one thing what I had to do. For 5 years, from the 8th grade until I graduated, I had to deliver milk every morning. Monday, Sunday through Saturday. July the 4th, Christmas, New Year's, no matter what holiday it was, the people wanted their milk. Don't have that anymore. Nobody delivers milk anymore. I jump off this truck every day. When I finished, Sam got angry with me. I said, Sam, I got to get out and go to work now. I can't keep doing this. This is all right when I went to school, but not now. And I got to get out and go to school or go do something else. He got angry. So
Life was like
That's
it was
fine.
then.
that's why I enjoy laying in bed so much now.
You know, it was okay. It was what we knew.
Who's Sam?
Sam Davidson, he was a milk dealer.
Okay.
He had a farm, he had a dairy farm.
You
And
know, Mr. Lippincott?
Mr. Lippincott, we met every day, and I thought a lot of times those milkmen would meet each other. Him, Mr. Lippincott, Mr. Folker, Mr. Man up in Mount Royal.
Yeah.
He looked like Sam Davis. And they get to yakking, and I'm worrying about these people. These people are holding me up. I got to go to school. And they yakking and yakking and yakking. But I always got to school on time, but I was always afraid that they were going to talk too long and make me late for school. Because I got a certificate several times for not being absent nor late. You know, we used to give them out years ago when going to school.
I was late usually every day when the school was right in my
Honest to
backyard.
goodness,
And you know what,
Jump through the
Gladys?
fence.
You know, Gladys Kaminsky was the secretary.
Yeah, right.
So she says, Eleanor, you just have to get up earlier. But you see, in the morning you had your chores to do.
Mm-hmm.
You had to see that I did have to see that my bedroom was left clean and my bed was made up before I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
See, that was another
Well,
thing.
Cole wasn't going to do it for you, right?
No, but I wouldn't blame her either. I mean, after all, I'm in high school. I make your
Yeah, how about
Yeah,
yourself?
but I know every day I was late.
Yeah, honest to
You have to go to the office and get a note, a pass to go to your class.
How about that? Well, Miss Payne would say you're going to refit.
You didn't get sick much.
Mhm.
No. But we
Yeah, I was a Boy Scout from,
didn't sick too much. And very
I don't know
seldom-
how old I was when I
very
first
seldom
joined it. I don't even know how old I was when I
You
quit.
had days off, the snow.
But the
was
highlight
hot,
of it was
you went to
walking
school.
14 miles to Camp Davis. Hmm?
Go repeat that. Go repeat it.
With the highlight,
Yes.
the highlight of what I remember in the Boy Scouts years ago was going to walking 14 miles from here to Camp Roosevelt. That was down near somewhere, wherever it was back.
Woodstown.
And stay overnight and then get up in the morning, eat these cold potatoes and those half-fried meat and stuff that we cooked, laid out there in the grass all night.
14 miles.
14 miles. My buddy was Davis and Samuel.
Oh,
We sent 2 at a time. Two left, and then maybe I don't know, 20 minutes, a half hour later, 2 more started up. So you could be that much farther ahead of them when you're walking down the road, wherever. I don't even know how they would get there now if I had to do it. I don't know what it did. But we got there anyway.
Camp Roosevelt.
Yeah, Camp
Did it have the
Roosevelt.
totem poles there at that time?
Totem pole?
Yeah, they have them there now.
I You mean those markers?
Yep.
Land, I imagine so, but I don't know the route I took. I don't know. I guess Mr. Gator mapped it out for us.
Was that a segregated?
I don't know. I guess Camp Roosevelt was somewhere that you just...
Yeah, it was all black troop.
I don't know.
No, your Boy Scouts.
So your Boy Scout.
Oh, you know, the Boy Scouts, yeah, we were, at that time, because Mr. Gator had the black ones down here. But I thought you went down to Camp Roosevelt, because when we went to Camp Roosevelt, I don't remember anybody being at but his contingency of kids, I don't know anybody else who was with us.
Can you tell me the name, number?
I don't know what happened and nothing else down there. That's been so long
Tell
ago.
me the number, your troop number.
Don't know the number, no. I don't know the number. I don't know the amount of kids was in this troop. I don't know anything now. I'm like Eleanore. You got too old to remember that kind of thing now.
No,
But anyhow, we had a good time. We learned a lot. We learned how to tie all kinds of knots and how to
I sent one, but I didn't get one.
maybe cook. Especially on a stick out in the woods on a fire with a steak. You go down to the street and get a 25-cent piece of steak. Carry it out in the woods on a stick. Get some Watkins salt and pepper. Put it on there and you thought it was the best.
You know,
You learn a lot of things in the Boy Scouts, naturally, and I guess they still do. But a lot of it, I don't remember a lot of things that we did then. I don't.
I was going to say, my aunt used to cook for the Boy Scouts in Camp Roosevelt. That was later years.
Is that right?
Yes, she went every day.
I like that.
She cooked for the Boy Scouts. It was integrated then, and she cooked there. She went every day. And I think Buster had something to do with the Boy Scouts too, because he had the corpsman boy, Everett, the young, not Earl. I don't think he had Earl, but
Everett.
Everett, yes, yeah, all those boys, yes. He was connected with the Boy Scouts.
And who was Buster? Who's Buster?
My husband.
Was he a scout leader at one time?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Now, you live in Swedesboro?
I'm in Woolwich.
You're in Woolwich?
Yes.
Do you know anything about Joe Grasso's building? Joe Grasso? That's where I went to school. But they moved the school back. That used to be the Battentown School.
Oh, so can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
Joe Grasso's office
Okay, over
building
by the new.
used to be the Battentown School.
Okay.
And Miss Clifford, my nephew used to go, Miss Clifford.
We loved her just like she was our mother.
She was nice. She was one of the nicest women person you could find in the world. She was a nice
She
lady.
wore her hair in long golden
We
curls.
thought she was so pretty. She had
And
blue
wear
eyes
high
and
heels.
blonde hair. She was so pretty.
Was she blonde or redhead?
No, she was
I think
blonde.
reddish
Oh,
blonde.
Reddish blonde.
Okay.
Golden like.
And we had lunches hot lunch every day.
High heel shoes.
Was she cook for you?
The 3rd and 4th grade girls used to cook.
Okay.
We had a kitchen, 2 bathrooms in there, and I think Monday we had cocoa, Tuesday we had potato soup, Wednesday we had vegetable soup, and one day we had spaghetti. And then when we had nothing left, we had cocoa again. The parents used to bring that stuff. But she would buy the oil. We had an oil stove, and it wasn't Mike's Corner, it was La Rosa's.
Yeah.
La Rosa had a store up on the corner.
Right.
And she'd send one of the 4th grade boys up there to get oil for the stove. All those things keep coming back.
And you said before Mike was La Rosa?
Yeah, La Rosa.
Oh, is that before he moved over on Auburn Avenue? Auburn
Now,
afterwards?
yes.
It was
He
Philip
moved from Auburn back over here.
LaRosa and Mary LaRosa married Buddy.
Yeah, right.
That's the
Yeah,
LaRosa.
I know. Because my father and him used to tussle every time he went to buy gasoline. Him and Mr. LaRosa's name was Frank, I think. Frank LaRosa. And they'd get out there tussling. We were little children like, what are they doing?
Who's Frank LaRosa?
I think it's Mary's father.
No,
Carmen?
it was Philip's father.
Phillips.
Mary Monaco married Philip LaRosa.
But Mary's Apollo was,
His daughter.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
She was here one day to bring me some whiskey and stuff years ago when my mother was living, before I stopped buying that stuff for Christmas. I said, come here, I want to show you somebody. So Russell we were sitting around the corner of that table there. I said, come here, I want to show you somebody. I said, don't this look like the man that you knew on the farm when you were 17 years old working for Horner? And You had Murray and Philip LaRosa.
Yeah, that's
Frank
right.
LaRosa, whatever his name was.
Miriam.
I said, Russell looked just like his grandfather.
So it was just those two.
Mm-hmm. He looked just like his grandfather.
And then Messina's were on the other corner.
Yeah.
Now, Camilla Messina, that girl could really do, her Latin was so perfect.
One of them was real pretty. Which one was that?
I thought
Camilla?
Camilla.
She was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I saw her about 5 or 6 years ago over in Heritage store. And she was talking and she says, about not knowing anybody. I said, I know you. And I said, you're a Messina. You should live up on Kings Highway. Oh. She was visiting. I don't know where she said she lived.
My name is, ready?
Yep.
My name is Elaine Edwards, and I'm the local historian for our historical organization, which is the Historical and Educational Natural Preservatory Incorporated. And our mission, our historical organization's mission, is to preserve the African American history in Swedesboro and in southern New Jersey and beyond. And I'm here today to talk to you about the history of the Richardson Avenue School. The beginning of segregation or / integration of the Swedesboro schools started when the African American students started their education at the Swedesboro Grammar School. I think the grammar school opened its doors around 1906. The school was segregated with the white children were educated on the upper floors of the school, first, second, and third levels of the school, and the African American children were educated by African American teachers on the first and the basement level of the school. All areas of activity also was segregated as far as the playground, and I'm not as sure, but lunchroom probably. During that time, in the early part of the 20th century, there wasn't a problem once the school opened. They had enough teachers for the number of African American students that were attending the school. But as the century progressed into the 20s and the 30s, her canning company had a factory there where they processed vegetables, asparagus, tomatoes, and other vegetables. And they had a need for workers to work in the canning factory and on the farms. Thus, they sent out word through the southern states advertising the need for employment and looking for help for people to come to the north. Thus, many African Americans came to Swedesboro, seeking employment and better lifestyle for their families. They came here, they married, had children, and of course, those children grew to the age or level for attending schools. Thus, by the late 20s, the school system, Swedesboro Grammar School, located on Kings Highway in Swedesboro, became overcrowded with the number of African American students, and there was a need for the Board of Education to seek a room elsewhere, a third room, for the education of the African American children. They seek throughout the town. They looked at a facility over the drugstore. Maybe possibly that could be a location for the third room for the education of the children. That wasn't successful. But then they heard about the Mount Lebanon Lodge, which is let me have the complete name, is the Mount Lebanon Prince Hall, Mount Lebanon Lodge 47, Free and Accepted Masons. They had constructed a building for the use of their meetings and other activities. It had just opened in 1931, and the Board of Education approached the Masons, asking them if they could rent the facility for the education of the African American children. Now, I'm not sure how the negotiations went, whether they just wanted part of the building or all of the building. Thus, in the end, not only were they looking for just one room, they ended up moving all of the African American children out of the grammar school into the Mount Lebanon Lodge, which consists of 2 small rooms on the first floor and 1 large medium room on the 3rd floor.
And about how many children?
There was about 140 children that would be housed in this particular building. I'm not sure the size. I think it was maybe, refresh my memory, 90 by 60 rectangular.
I don't know, I believe it was about 30 by 50 or something.
30 by 50 rectangular building, square building that was housing the children with 3 African American teachers. Of course, the rooms were very crowded. There was 1 bathroom facility downstairs and up.
What were the grade levels?
The grade levels started at kindergarten, then it dropped back to. Okay, the classes that were at the Richardson Avenue School were from beginners to 7th grade. And on the 3rd floor, 1st to 2nd floor, rather, I'm sorry, there was 3 classrooms. 3rd, 4th, 5th grade was on the 2nd floor with 1 teacher teaching that class, and then 2 grades in the 2 rooms downstairs. The negotiation with the Masons for the rental of the property by the Board of Education was $750 per year. At the time that the school was open, there was not a sewer line hooked up to the school, but in a couple of months that line was hooked up, and the children had bathroom facilities. I'm not sure what they did in those first 2 months. As far as heating of the school, there were coal space heaters that were used to heat all 3 rooms. There was a coal bin on the property in the back of the school for the heating of the school. There were excellent teachers that taught at that school. The beginning was Mrs. Perry, Miss Gully, and Miss Freeman. Miss, I should say, for all 3. And Miss Hardy, or Miss Perry, and later on Miss Hardy, and
Hardy Perry.
Hardy Perry.
Miss Hardy. Miss Hardy.
She was pretty.
I'm sorry, they're distracting me. The children receive an excellent education, and as in previous interviews that you will hear, they had told their story and the quality education that they received at the school. And when they moved on from that school, Richardson Avenue School, to the Swedesboro Grammar School and into high school, they were well equipped with the knowledge that they need for college level.
Where would they play?
They had a small area on the side of the school. The property is very small, but there was a lot in the back of the school, which was used for the fire farmer. Sometimes there was vegetables in there sometime during the seasonal time, and to the side of the school there was a lot. They played there. One of the owners of the property that was in the back of the school, she complained frequently of the trespassing of the children over into her property. I guess it was just kind of turning up the dirt and just destroying the weeds or whatever. But anyway, the children had fun anyway, and children will go beyond the boundaries, because that's what learning is all about, going beyond the boundaries. As far as our organization is concerned, our Health Incorporation, we have a mission that we wanted to preserve the history of this particular school. And so we felt as though it was important that we made sure that the history of the Richardson Avenue School will be told known by this generation and generations to come. But in our effort to preserve the Richardson Avenue School, I have to automatically incorporate the Auburn Avenue School in my story. And that story, the help story starts with a mission that was, I guess, kind of laid or thrown at me, or I grabbed by one of the former alumni of the school, who has since deceased. His name was Henry Payne, was a president of the Swedesboro Council in Swedesboro. And he approached the Women's Progressive Club and indicated that a school, not the Richardson Avenue School, but the Auburn Avenue School, and I can tell you that story, in Swedesboro was possibly being demolished. And that school was a segregated school. How did the Auburn Avenue School come about? After many efforts made by the parents of the children attending the Richardson Avenue School, many efforts were made by them complaining about the conditions of the Richardson Avenue School. Those complaints were issued to the Board of Education about the size of the smallness of the school, the inadequacy of the needs for bathroom, playground, etc. And many efforts were made over the years, 11 years in fact. And this complaint went up to the level of the state. And the State Board of Education presented an option to the Swedesboro Board of Education. They were given two options. Either, this was in 1940, either close the school and put the children back at their Swedesboro Grammar School, or construct a new school. This, of course, is from 1940, the beginning of the Second World War. This vote was presented to the residents of Swedesboro, and their decision was to construct another segregated school. So thus, the segregated school was constructed on the adjacent property where the children were playing, and that school was called the Auburn Avenue School. The name, of course, was named after the street in which it was on. In 1942, that school was open, and all the children left and was transferred from the Richardson Avenue School to the Auburn Avenue School. Thus, that was the beginning of the Auburn Avenue School. And to the question that was presented to the Women's Progressive Club by Hank Payne, telling us about this school that was now being demolished, and this was in 1995. So the school was opened in 1942, and in 1995, over the period of years, there was no need for the school, and the school was empty, and the Board of Education, and then what happened was there was an enrollment, over the period, there was a lull in the enrollment over a period of years of students, because it was just the Swedesboro students going to the Swedesboro school system. And then, of course, Woolwich Township started to develop, and there was an increased enrollment in the Swedesboro school system, and thus there was a need for another school. And then the Board of Education saw that property where
Understand how those kids were so well behaved in
They
that
were.
class.
Yes, she had a ruler.
It was with Miss Freeman's classroom.
Disciplined.
Yes, and look,
but
but they weren't well behaved for Mr. Gator.
No.
No.
They were well behaved for Miss Hardy. The only bad one in that Miss Hardy's room was me, because I used to get sent home from down there. Hey, Lillian, I used to get home because it was fresh.
Yeah, you were.
And where could I go but across the street to my house, and my mom put a long finger in my face and ball them up. What did you do?
To teach social studies and social science by Mr. Gator, not my life. He took us all
Those people were well disciplined.
and he would just stand.
Oh,
He
yeah,
just
that's
lectured.
because of
We
the
just listened to
parents,
him.
right?
You know how his voice sounded.
Right. You were right there.
We
Now-
just sit there and he looked.
When you guys came along, and you be telling me, and sister be telling me what kids do in the school room, we would never think about doing that. While you're teaching school, they get up, and they want to see their friend back in the corner, they get them walk back there and see him. You didn't do that stuff years
I could
ago.
not be a teacher now.
Golly.
But you see,
I
always say that training first comes from the home.
Oh, yeah.
It
Better
comes from
believe
the
it.
home.
But you know, the children, I think the children then respected themselves. And they
They knew they
right,
read it
and
when they got
their
home. They knew it was going to happen.
Their family, they didn't want to disrespect their family.
That's
the whole,
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so I started within,
You
and so
won.
that they're not
Well,
going
she
to
has
say
grown.
anything that's going to disrespect their
Look like her
parents
mommy.
and family.
I know Miss Beeman didn't have any problem.
No, she had no problem. Hey, Lillian, I used to tease her when after we grew up, she used to come to visit us. I said, Miss Freeman, you know what you used to blah, blah, blah. Oh, no. I said, yes, you did. I'm old now. I'm 20-something years old. Yes, you did, too. Because you know how she used to do things, when she'd teach you something, and she'd repeat it over and over until she almost drive you crazy until you learned it, no matter whether it was some music or learning something. She would go over it. I said, oh, my God, will this woman please
Stop. Just shut up.
Yeah. But she made sure that when she finished, you had it. You're the first custodian over there.
Over where? Over where?
Over the Auburn Avenue School.
Oh.
See, I always call it the Woodburn Avenue School because I feel so that is the historic name for the school. In other words, it could be the Margaret C. Clifford School, and then we call a subtitle Auburn Avenue School. There is a plaque that is that was required by the Board of Education to place on the property in front of the Margaret C. Clifford School that says that at this site was the last segregated school built in the state of New Jersey, the Auburn Avenue School, and it gives the date in which it was constructed and the date it was closed. So I guess I would have to wind back to the part where the children from when school was closed, the Richardson Avenue School was closed, the children were relocated to the newly constructed Auburn Avenue School, and there they had four room school with four teachers, Miss Freeman, Miss Gully, Miss Blake, and Mr. William Gibbs, who has a story within himself. He was the principal of the school. Mr. Gibbs had relocated from Rockville, Maryland, where he fought with the Rockville school system in Rockville, Maryland, trying to get equal pay for the African American students there. Through his years of effort and struggle, he took his case to the NAACP, and he was represented by Thurgood Marshall with his case, and he was successful in getting equal pay for the teachers in Rockville, Maryland. That was in the late 30s. I'm not sure the exact date. As a result of any effort of that sort, when an activist, stepping out of the boundaries like that, it resulted in him losing his job. And he relocated to Philadelphia area, where he did teach there for a year, and then to Swedesboro. I don't know how he found out about Swedesboro, but he was eventually hired by the Board of Education as a principal of the new. I'm sorry. We have to replay that again. He was initially hired before the Richardson Avenue School closed. Mr. Gator had left, and he came in the last semester of that year, and he was hired as the principal. And in turn, when the children moved over, he moved over to the Richardson Auburn Avenue School
As principal.
As principal of the Auburn Avenue School. I had heard that his contract was signed not in Mr. Gibbs' office. Not in the principal's office at that time. Walter Hill was the principal at that time, but I had heard that it was signed in a closet. So it wasn't signed in the office of his office.
Where did Mr. Phillips come in?